Hello and most welcome to 1753 of the Heidegger's series. Yet another Zoom meeting together with Kalle Lundahl. We will today do the summary more extensively of Locker and Sedmak's excellent article of Language Game of Revelation. And we can go a bit into the text there. I had some pointers I will not read a lot of. We can stop there and go to the next page. Contrary to Augustine, who assumes that every word has a meaning that is correlated with a word, and at the same time, the object from which the word stands. And I think that is most definitely in close connection to what we mentioned earlier, a picture-driven misunderstanding of an outsideness of the world, where we are disconnected. And our words are like Saussure or many others like Austin are just arbitrary pointers towards the disjunct outsideness of the world. And of course, this causes an incredible chiasm between our words, our understanding, and the world. We will in the end have no connection whatsoever. We will be like stranded travelers left on a deserted island, but an island that has no connection whatsoever to our own world. It's a bit like Star Wars or one of the science fiction movies come to real, when we get stranded in a different Earth, a different planet altogether. Sedmak and Locker's point is that religion has gone that way because of misunderstandings deeply ingrained in language, or a combination, as Athol suggested, between our massive intelligence and language. We come to conclusions that fly in the face of reality. We distance ourselves from the words and they become meaningless. They become just existences or tokens. Signs. What Locker and Sedmak instead are doing is defending a participatory Bible where we, as readers, as believers, are extending the concepts by our will and by our doings, and thereby making it possible for religion to become real again. I would say that article is pointing to something out of the ordinary. It's doing two different things. By repetition, it becomes clearer. The first thing, it shows why religion has become a thing of the past. The second is to show the words in religion cannot have any value if they are not participating, if they are not used in their proper function, when they are not in the game, so to speak. Sedmak and Locker are focusing on revelation, but I would say it goes for the whole Bible and all of Christianity. None of the concepts, no matter what it might be, can have any meaning if Augustine's idea or misconception is followed to the point. We will then desperately try to construct meaning from the outside, so to speak, and we will be eternally punishing ourselves, because as Wittgenstein showed, that chimera will never take us back to the origin where the problem was created. Is exactly there we want to go. We need to deepen that understanding. And of course, that's one of the reasons for this tough repetitions and often I felt meaningless repetition, or going into what is thinking, what is perception, what is memory, emotion. The reason is that's where it starts. And just a couple of lines further down, we see, knowing that God is speaking, that is, speaks to me, is part of an activity, or moreover, a particular form of life. So speaking to God is not like speaking to someone else, your neighbor, a friend, someone on the telephone. Not knowing the difference will lead us into the idea that God is an imaginary friend. In Sweden, we have a famous character called Molgan, who's invented by a small child in a children's book. This is what God will become if we don't look out for those trivial things in language, superficial structures that leads us on the wrong path. The path of the chimera. It's an activity. Believing is not something you do inside your head, and where it is a proposition that has two possible results, true or false. How many believers today are not constantly caught in doubt every other day by this misunderstanding? By going into where the problem actually starts, only there can it be mended or understood. And the superficial belief of how language works will be replaced by a much more complicated and advanced one. Before we go to the next text, I would like to hear what my colleague Kalle Lundahl says. Most welcome.
Yes, I could also comment on this same phrase on this page, on page 243. So Augustine thought that the meaning of a word is the object. So the meaning of the word is the object. So then we could ask, what is the subject in Augustine? I think the subject in Augustine is placed within parentheses. Augustine, so to say, forgets about the subject. So the subject, implied subject that he forgets, is both the word itself. The important thing is the meaning of the word, which is the object. And the others, okay, so the subject is the word, but it's also the, let's say, the parent who points out the word for the child. Let's say this parent points at the table. So in this case, the parent would be the subject who points out the table. So here is the subject, so to say, the pointing. But Augustine forgets about this. Everything that matters for Augustine is the object. So can we say that the table itself? Okay, so the meaning is because table is different things in different languages. What is the, let's say, the Platonic meaning that is relevant? That is the object is perhaps in the Platonic world, word up in the idea Platonic world up there. There is the object. Everything here on Earth is placed between parentheses, so to say. The pointer, the human being who points out at the table, but also the literal table is actually put within parentheses because the idea table is the object is in the Platonic world. Would you agree with that, Hans?
Yes, yes, very good. Yeah, and I would like to expand it also to give some hints that what Augustine and we all forget is to know the word table, for instance, is to interact with it for months, years. The child needs to be within the table, use it. Just pointing to it will not do. it will not give the object, as you call it, of the table. And if you were to introduce tables to a foreign tribe that doesn't have tables, it could actually be that they never learn how they work. It's complicated things.
Mm.
And this once more is going back to that we are looking at the superficial structure. And of course, me and Augustine, we were tricked into thinking that it never took us any time, and that table is not a relational thing that we sit by and use and eat by, study by, do work by, do carpentry by, do millions of things. We are doing, let's say it like this way, this is a bit exaggerated, but we do the word by actually using it. And of course, as you say, if there is no actor, the subject is gone in the eye of Augustine. There's no subject there. Whereas in Wittgenstein, the subject is ever present. Wittgenstein is quantum mechanics, no doubt. The observer is doing, or as I think it was Locker or Sedmak who wrote, we extend the expression, we extend the concept. If we don't do that, we will not have the concept. And mere pointing to something or looking into a lexicon won't do. It won't be enough. Extension is a doing. Meaning is a doing. And another thing to remember, it is not like Augustine is absolutely wrong either, but it's more in the oversimplification of the problem. Of course, when you are an adult, you can learn some expressions for the first time by somebody pointing them out. But the very bulk of the words, the most important ones like this and that, or and, how do you point to that? How do you point to the suffix for past grammar, like happened? So it's not absolutely wrong, but it's a bit of an oversimplification that leads you completely wrong. It could, as you suggested, Kalle, lead to the Platonic world. I say it definitely can do that.
Yes, indeed. I mean, in this sense would be the Platonic picture of a table.
Yes.
That is the and in this case, you have only explicit meanings, like everything that matters is explicit meanings.
Yeah.
The perfect table, there are no impurities in this table.
No, that's another side to that. All the implicit, the most important, as Wittgenstein says. It's a quote from Wittgenstein, darüber wir nicht sprechen kann, muss wir schweigen. That means that the most important things are the ones we cannot talk about. And that's the implicit. Because it's use, it's the use. How do you explain use? You can't. You do it.
Indeed. And as he says here, Wittgenstein, God is part of activity, it's part of the formal life.
Yeah, definitely. Wittgenstein did practice that all his life. He was a very pious man.
Yes, with your kind permission, Hans, I will scroll down very slowly, and
Go
when we
ahead.
see something interesting, we can stop, or do you have any proposal, Hans? I will go slowly down. Here we have the rules.
I think it's a very good one there. If you go up just one line there. It's very primitive, it's very down to earth, but it's so good. See this way, the words. Think the tools in a toolbox. There's a hammer, pliers, a saw, a screwdriver, a rule, a glue pot, glue, nails, screws. The functions of words are as diverse as the functions of these objects. And this is definitely pointing to two things. The meaning is use as one thing, but you need to combine that words are so different from each other, so extraordinary different, whereas Augustine and Chomsky and me before thought that all words had the same purpose, to represent something in the world. No, words have all the scale, and they look at this description here, glue pot, glue. They're all in the toolbox. How do you explain the word what? Does it have any relation to the word table or keyboard? No. There is a family resemblance, but they are not sharing traits. Please, you can continue. Sorry for the stop.
We could only observe perhaps the rule that Wittgenstein often discusses, but in different senses usually. Here is in a very literal sense. I think that you have a toolbox. That rule can also be much more, can also be, of course, a rule like in commandments. And for Wittgenstein, this is an aspect of seeing, as we have established.
Yeah, we have a quote from Glock. If you go up just one line, there's an irreducible multiplicity of language games by Glock. So despite the academic modern efforts, language cannot be reduced to one context and thus to one essence. In a family, you can have your fathers, you can have your sisters and brothers, but you also have in-laws, like your aunt's husband. Still family resemblance, but there is no blood. And then you can have bonus children, no connection whatsoever, but they are still in the same family. Yeah, here's a good one. Do tell me, Kalle, if you think I'm too repetitive. Here the term language game is meant to bring into prominence that the fact that speaking of language is part of an activity or a form of life. Let me bring in an example here. When I learned Spanish, a friend of mine was on the same trip, and he had a grammar book, he had a dictionary, he even had a thesaurus, and he wanted to translate the words in Spanish to English. It made for a cumbersome conversation, whereas I tried instead to go directly by speaking, by using it into the language. And that worked as a charm. And whereas he got stuck in the development, that gives a hint that speaking is an act. And here you have all the examples. They don't follow a rule. Giving orders, speculating by events, forming and testing a hypothesis, singing catches, making a joke, telling it. Millions.
Yes, here on 246 is the important sentence. Here, language games are not only governed by rules, there is also something beyond the rules, which can be called the point which of the language game.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I have actually some sort of an explanation for that. Think about the glue in the toolbox. You can learn to use the glue. It takes time. It took me years or a year as a child. But then you also have the point, glue things together. If you know how to handle the glue, you will be able to put that vase that you broke together again. Or you can glue your tires on your cycle so you can ride a bike. It has a point, and it's a matter of degree. But the words, as Sedmak and Locke sees it, in Revelation and elsewhere, can be made to have meaning again, because use them. Go into the game. Don't question it. Don't see it as propositional. Don't start out Revelation if God existed. I think it's quite clear. It's like playing a football game, and you tell your compatriots or your team members, if we win the game or something like that, then we kick your butt.
Speaking of game, I did rewatch the Monty Python soccer game.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That soccer team, that game doesn't have a point.
Yeah, I think it's fun.
It's fun. That's the point of it. Yeah, definitely.
So they don't use the ball at all in the beginning of the game. They are only thinking, speculating. But then Archimedes says, "Eureka!" and then he kicks the ball,
Yeah.
and the Greeks win.
It's excellent. I've been using that quite frequently. Thank you, Kalle.
Yes, you need to go and hit the ball. That is the Eureka.
Well, we must remember that Monty Python had extensive exposure to that sort of philosophy when they studied at the university. Although I don't think it was Cambridge as Wittgenstein encountered. And for the people here, we are touching on mathematics here, I can add, he's not adding mathematics because of his extraordinary interest in mathematics. It is because maths as a simplified or much simpler language game, in that it is easier to see that following a rule makes an object, where it's tough to start out and see that a table is actually a rule following of sort. But there are rules with a table. You don't sit on it. Neither do you stand on it. You don't do a lot of other things.
So here, the difference between the superficial is the grammar and the depth grammar is the hidden English rules.
Yeah.
Like that, therefore, we can say talk to God is different from a talk to my friend.
Yes, it's extremely different, but most Swedish priests would say it's the same thing. Solo scriptura and all that, the explicitness of today explain everything. Nobody can understand I talk to God anymore.
They follow a different logic.
I have one example of something that you learn. The procedure of putting a lump of cheese on a balance and fixing the price by the turn of the scale would lose its point if it frequently happened for such lumps to suddenly grow or shrink for no obvious reason. So you see, a third aspect is we get a reality. Things are real of the Wittgensteinian approach.
And in this case, scale is also the rule.
Oh yeah.
The grammatical rule. It's not fixed. Wittgenstein also supports that she can always change a little bit.
Yeah.
But still, there are rules. A cheese is always more or less like a cheese, although there are small different variables, differences.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, we have a worldview, a Weltanschauung. And Anschauung is composed of a set of basic convictions. And it's part of a kind of mythology that we did not get by satisfying ourselves of its correctness. No exaggeration, I would say all Christians today are looking for correctness or proof. And that's the absolutely wrong tree to bark upon. And we don't go to the inherited background against which I distinguish between true and false.
Indeed. So it's easy to fall in the trap of propositions, is it true or is it false? Instead, we should look for the bits, the meaning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Passing on a worldview comes from a sort of how do you pronounce that? Persuasion.
So as they point out, we should leave the question, what is the book of Revelation? That is, and the point, and this Markus Lockgren claims the point, Sedmak, excuse me, claims Sedmak, the point, this phrase, Heideggers type, that is things that are necessary to happen. So it's a key phrase. Things that will happen is a key phrase. Like in a soccer game, if you use that phrase, that's the interesting thing. That what will happen.
Well, by seeing that, I think of some more original strands of Christianity where they read out of a language that cannot, so to speak, be understood. And the explicit take on that is, well, that's meaningless. Because they don't have the explicit meaning. They cannot explain what language is or what they are reading. And of course, that's once more the Augustinian take. I know that's wrong because I've been using words in languages, thousands of them. I had no idea what they meant, but by repetition, you get the meaning. You don't get meaning. You don't learn language by explanations. Some words, yes, in some cases, but the very bulk of it, it's by doing. And it makes learning language very hard if you get explanations. If you have your dictionary, I think he even had my friend have a thesaurus. He had a grammar book. He had everything.
So, and these two authors, Locker and Sedmak, point out that important difference between the Old Testament and the Book of Revelation. So in the Old Testament, in the Book of Daniel, it's about God's action independent from human collaboration.
Yeah.
In the Old Testament, while in New Testament, that is especially in the Book of Revelation, it's about the same phrase is used about our action. We have to be active.
Oh yeah, most definitely. An activity is the way you learn the meaning of a word. If you don't practice it, if you don't sing the hymn, if somebody just explain it to you, you will never get the meaning. Unless for some, and I would say the exceptions are mostly technical. I think that's been made worse by Newtonian thinking, because there in Newton explanations are quite important. But reading the Bible is not the same thing as building a house or making a bridge. That last one here, joining in this task, this paper will not attempt to ask what is revelation, but how to use revelation. It's a live activity. You only get the meaning of the words by using them. If you don't use them, how can you understand? It would be like somebody explained to you how it would be to play table tennis. And then you say, I know what it is to play table tennis. I read an explanation. Can a book about golf teach you to play golf? So you won't have to spend $100 an hour to hire a trainer. Well, in that case, if a book is enough, there wouldn't be any golf trainers. And there wouldn't be any bad golfers. I think we all know about the existence of both of those things. I am one of them, no doubt. The point is very similar to what Feyerabend said about science. In close cooperation with the engineers, the scientists of CERN in Switzerland, he said that even producing these new particles are a part of a doing, handling the machinery in CERN, using your hands, your tools, the inherent skill, which is not explainable, possibly never explainable. Some of it is, but the most part of it will not be. And being beyond description doesn't mean at all hidden or secretive. No, it has to do with the nature of reality. Reality is in itself a doing. And by explaining, we miss the point. Or to be more specific and more exact, we explain away reality when we use explaining at the wrong moment. That's the problem. This is when we get into this barren reality, that emptiness of understanding.
So let's continue. So the question is how to use revelation. That is the important thing.
Yeah, most definitely. And when doing this, I come more and more to agree completely with, I wouldn't say completely, but with Affelt. The problem is not only in language. We, with our intelligence, we are the ones who's also at fault, and there's nothing inherently wrong with language.
Absolutely. And here on page 252, it got clear that Theo, that is to keep in Revelation 1:3, does not refer to keep a knowledge and events in one's mind. Revelation 14:3 explains, here is a call for the endurance of the saints, those who keep one's heart hold fast to the faith of Jesus. So it versus holding knowledge within oneself and to actually keep the commandments.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point there, Kalle. It is not knowledge in the or events in one's mind. And I think that knowledge is in one's head, or events are stored like memory. That will take us most definitely on the wrong path. And we could call that wrong path passivity, but it has other qualities as well. But it will also lead to the idea of this that doesn't exist in science, and is this 0 and 1 relationship, or true and false relationship. And that's a rather modern thing, is that do you believe in God, or do you think you have a soul? It's like either true or false. It's like a proposition. And it's led to a big conference in Arizona where people are discussing Churchland, Chalmers, and others. Is there a consciousness? Is the first question. And the second, explain it. Make it explicit. So it has consequences also in the sciences, and there are billions of dollars spent on AI and such stuff today. So it's not at all only philosophy. It's
yes, or as Wittgenstein says, proposition is a queer thing.
Yeah.
Proposition is a strange thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's very unusual. It does exist, but is, as you say, it's a queer thing.
And here we have the Greek makarios, which means blessed, and here it's emphasized that actually doing something, that is what makes you blessed.
Yeah, most definitely. And it says here, however, unlike in a real game, God's blessing is never obtained by human doing alone, but always a true gift of God. Let's think about this, because you can be led, and I was led into the idea by me needing, or anyone needing, to persistently participate. It might look, and I think some of you will agree with that, it might look that we are constructing things like this ourselves. So the soul or our free will is a doing only ourselves. But that would be absolutely mistaken. Absolutely mistaken. We are entering into the language game and having God's blessing absolutely coming from him, nothing to do with our action, is still possible. It sounds paradoxical, but everything in the language game is doing. And also this is a sort of doing. So expand the idea that you are a person doing it. The toolbox is good, but you need to go beyond the toolbox to understand participating in the language game can also give you God's blessing. That is never obtained by human doing alone. It's very good that authors Sedmak and Locker added that, because it's extremely helpful. And that is definitely in line what Wittgenstein means. Is not to be.
But I think actually that I don't know if I completely agree with this. Because in a real game, like in a football game or whatever, you can have bad losers. Like hooligans, they don't like that they game that they what do you call them? A log in English.
Team.
Thank you. Their team lost, so they can begin to fight. Or chess game, you can have bad losers. So I think that if you accept that you lost the game, in a way you're giving a grace to the winner. You accepting that you are blessing it. You can take it in a bad way if you're a bad loser, or you can take it graciously.
Well, yeah, most definitely. It's a family resemblance, and he is pointing to that all things are possible, so to speak. They are different.
So here Jesus is recommending the church's perseverance hypomone. It's also said by the seer himself. 109. But in the game you need of course perseverance, and that's necessary. And here we have combined all these 2-3 times. And we are saying that is you need to Nikao means I win.
Yes.
So that is about the point of revelation. So I think this is perhaps the most important phrase in the whole paper. There are the bits about winning.
Yeah, definitely. The wits, the point. I don't know why they're using wits. I would prefer point, but all of a sudden you understand that words can have a point, and the more you use them, the more point is coming to you. It's a process, and it will take years. It's most definitely not a matter of days, weeks, or months. No. We know learning a language, even for a child, it takes years. Practicing, doing things.
footnote 2, they say, an interesting pursuit would be a comparison of the book of Revelation to Wittgenstein's picture of language as an old city, the maze of little streets and squares in John's visions in Revelation 1 to 22, that are surrounded by the new boroughs with straight regular streets and houses of Revelation 7 clearly structured letters. So the comparison is between language and a city. Could be. Heidegger and selflessness and a conqueror are related. And we discussed the
Now, here we come to measure. It's very interesting, but something struck to my mind, and it's although the implicit that the thing you cannot talk about is the most important. A clearer understanding of that language is used will make both the explicit, it will not take away the explicit, but on the contrary, when you know when to use the explicit, it will be much sharper, stronger. So both are gaining. It's not a critique of explicit or beware of the explicit. No, it is a saving of the explicit.
Indeed. And the action in the Old Testament is more passive, as they point out. Ezekiel, there's also Ezekiel simply has to observe a bronze-like man with a measurement reed in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
And while in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, he is doing measure with himself, and it's here. He's given a measure rod and told to measure the temple of God, the altar, and those who worship there. The other God, however, is still out. So, as I told in the past, I think chapter 11 is most onto Ezekiel, with his measuring how.
Yes, and once more is mentioned here that the activity of measuring, and people tend to forget that measuring is an activity, and we do that activity 1,000 times a day, and therefore we get habituated and we forget it. Here is a very important pointer to that. Footnote 3, it's just interesting because it points to another article we had. The DCCT coin.
Indeed. Domingos on holding 7 stars in hand. Absolutely. And I could mention this that mysterion, word mysterion, is mystery in English. So these two authors emphasize that in Book of Revelation is something active. It's, they don't explicitly put it out, but I think it's not something that is only within you. Even mystery is something shared.
Yeah, most definitely. We share an activity, that's what makes it what others would call objective. It can only become true if we share it in church, in the doings, in the liturgy, and in science.
Mm. Are you there, Hans?
Yeah, I'm here. What did you say, Kalle?
No. Let us proceed. We have 4 pages left here in our summary.
Well, here you have the point, and think once more, expand the idea of the toolbox. It needs to be, it's almost like you need to think yourself out of the situation. You need to think that there is a doing here, and the doing comes first. You come second. You're still important, but you come second. The handling of the tools is the reality. Nothing in science, nothing in quantum mechanics is real without doing. It simply does not accept a world beyond us, a transcendental Platonic world, if you like. But it is constant presence, activity, measuring. And here we have a good one. And ultimately, we'd realize and establish the new world that John sees. The Christians are called to steadfastness and to listen now. This is so different from how Christianity is perceived today, but to actively conquer the world.
We need more crusades.
We need more, sorry?
Crusades.
Well, I think I have a point there. I'm not defending crusades, but don't you think it's pretty obvious that the Christians of the Middle Ages did not think God as a proposition? Am I going out on a limb, or what do you think, Kalle? You don't go on a crusade. You don't defend Christianity with your life if you think it's a proposition.
And Christ said actually, I'm not bringing peace but the sword. Christ said, I'm not bringing peace but sword to the world.
Okay.
It's very, very explicit. Okay, but we will not go here to go on to celebrate crusades here.
And I also think mentioned, you know where in the Bible that comes from, but the stiff-necked.
Yes, indeed.
A person who's stiff-necked, he doesn't listen literally, but he's also a person who's passive. Stiff-neckedness is always passivity.
Yes, Exodus 32. Moses is angry at the stiff-necked people of Israel.
Well, there you have in the conclusion also that Revelation could be seen as an exemplary language game. And yes, indeed, it's clear that there and any other part of the Bible, which I understood now, but it applies to the whole Bible and Christianity as such. And it's
so when you win the game, you will get water of life free. That's one of the prizes.
immortal life is a doing, where you see immortal life as that's an attitude. It's not a proposition. You do it, and it takes time to learn it, to be good at it. It's skillful. You interact with it, with others, and you share it, and so on.
Well, I think we made a good summary of the paper.
Yeah, most definitely. It follows the most of the paper. Very good.
Do we have time to begin a new paper?
Oh, it's 12:10 2 already.
Oi.
We passed more than an hour. We must have forgotten
Oi.
ourselves. No, it doesn't look that way. I need to go out now. But it was great. Thank you very much. I think I better end the recording here. It was very interesting. And I hope you listening enjoyed it. And thank you very much, Kalle Lundahl, for excellent comments. Most appreciated. I end the recording there, and also bid my thanks to Mrs. Locker and Sedmak. Very interesting. Thank you, and have a very pleasant day, afternoon, evening, or wherever you are. Do take care. Bye-bye.